The atmosphere inside the luxury first-class cabin of a prestigious airline was calm, with passengers settling into their wide leather seats. Among them was Keanu Reeves, dressed in his usual understated style, dark jeans, a simple black blazer, and his signature kindness in his eyes. He took his seat quietly, not drawing attention to himself. But the flight attendant, a woman named Claire, immediately noticed him and assumed he was out of place. She scanned him from head to toe, unimpressed. "Excuse me, sir, are you sure you're in the right seat?" she asked, forcing a tight smile. "First class is reserved for our premium passengers." Keanu remained polite. "Yes, this is my seat," he replied, handing over his boarding pass. Claire barely glanced at it before rolling her eyes. "I see," she muttered under her breath, turning away. Passengers nearby observed the interaction, some whispering amongst themselves. A businessman in a sharp suit smirked, amused by the exchange. Meanwhile, Keanu simply leaned back, unbothered, but the tension in the air was undeniable. Minutes later, Claire returned to take drink orders. When she reached Keanu, her attitude hadn't changed. "Would you like some water?" she asked, her tone dismissive, as if he didn't belong there. "We have expensive champagne, but I'm not sure it's suited for everyone." A few passengers chuckled at her remark. Keanu noticed the judgment but remained composed. "Just water, please," he said calmly. Claire huffed and moved on, treating the other first-class passengers with enthusiasm and warmth, laughing at their jokes and catering to their every request. The contrast was obvious. One passenger, a middle-aged woman, noticed the unfair treatment and whispered, "Do you know who that is?" But Claire shrugged. "Probably some guy who got upgraded by mistake," she scoffed. Meanwhile, Keanu sat in silence, observing everything. The man in the sharp suit across from him leaned in. "Some people don't know how to act," he said smugly. Keanu simply smiled. He had no need to prove himself. But fate had other plans. As the flight continued, turbulence hit. Claire, now visibly stressed, struggled to keep her balance while serving drinks. In her rush, she tripped, and a tray of expensive champagne bottles went flying, straight toward an elderly woman seated nearby. Without hesitation, Keanu sprang into action. With quick reflexes, he reached out and caught the tray before it could crash, steadying the glasses with remarkable ease. Gasps filled the cabin. Claire, flustered, stared in shock. I was going to," she stammered, but Keanu simply smiled and handed the tray back. "No worries," he said, his tone kind. The elderly woman patted his hand, grateful. "Such a gentleman," she said warmly. Claire, however, was mortified. She felt eyes on her, passengers who had witnessed her earlier rudeness now murmuring about how Keanu had saved the situation with grace. The same businessman who had been smug earlier now shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The power dynamic had changed, but Keanu remained as humble as ever. As the flight approached its destination, the captain suddenly made an announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special passenger on board today," he said. "A man who has inspired millions with his kindness and humility. Mr. Keanu Reeves." The entire cabin erupted in applause. Claire's face turned pale. The businessman who had mocked Keanu earlier looked stunned. The elderly woman beamed, clapping enthusiastically. Keanu, always modest, simply gave a small nod and waved. Claire swallowed hard, realizing the gravity of her mistake. Her arrogance had blinded her. She had insulted someone who not only belonged in first class but had more class than anyone she had ever met. Heart pounding, she approached Keanu hesitantly. "Mr. Reeves, I didn't recognize you," she admitted, her voice shaking. I misjudged you." Keanu looked at her, his expression unreadable. Then, with a small smile, he said, "It's okay. We all have moments where we judge too quickly. As the plane landed and passengers began to disembark, Claire was left standing near the exit, her mind racing. Keanu Reeves had every reason to be rude to her, to call her out in front of everyone, but instead, he had responded with kindness. That alone made her regret her behavior even more. As Keanu stepped off the plane, a crowd had already gathered at the terminal, fans, reporters, people who admired him. Claire watched as they rushed toward him, calling his name, taking photos. She realized that she had treated a legend like an outsider. With a deep breath, she whispered to herself, "I need to be better." Meanwhile, Keanu, ever gracious, took a moment to greet fans, shake hands, and even stop for selfies. He never carried arrogance, only warmth and humility. And that day, Claire learned a lesson she would never forget. The richest people aren't always the ones with money, they're the ones with heart.